Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship and looked out at the stars. 3 months ago, everything changed for humanity. The big alien meeting called the Galactic Council had voted. Every single alien race agreed on one thing: humans had to go. They said humans were too dangerous, too wild, and could not be trusted. Jake remembered that day clearly. The aliens wanted the human mining colonies. The Zephyrian Empire, with their bright blue skin and cold eyes, demanded that humans leave their homes. When humanity said no, the council made their choice. Humans were kicked out of civilized space. No more trade, no more talking, no more friendship. Earth and all human worlds were alone. The other aliens celebrated. They were happy to see humans go. Trade ships changed their routes to avoid human space. Communication channels went silent. Friends became strangers overnight. The galaxy moved on as if humans never existed. But Jake's boss, Admiral Peter Kane, was a smart man. He saw this coming months before it happened. While the politicians argued and made speeches, Kane prepared for the worst. He sent special ships to hide in space. Far from human worlds, these ships looked broken and dead, but inside, they were very much alive. They watched and listened to everything happening in the galaxy. Lisa Brooks walked up to Jake with papers in her hand. She was his second in command and one of the best officers he knew. Her face looked worried as she handed him the daily reports. "Captain, the aliens are really enjoying this," she said. "They think we're finished. Trade is up in their space, and they're making new deals without us. Some are even talking about taking over our old territory." Jake read through the reports. The Alterian Republic was expanding their trade routes. The Hydrons were building news stations where human outposts used to be. Even the small alien races were getting bolder, thinking humans were no longer a threat. Far away, near the Centauri trade hub, Daniel Park sat alone in a small hidden ship. For 3 months, he had been listening to alien communications. His job was boring most days, just sitting and recording alien chatter. But today was different. His equipment picked up something strange. Daniel leaned forward and checked his readings again. The energy patterns were unlike anything he had ever seen. They were massive, bigger than anything the aliens had. They were moving fast, heading toward the inside of the galaxy. He tried to track where the signals came from. The readings led to the edge of the galaxy where few ships ever went. According to his instruments, 3 entire star systems had gone silent in that area. No communications, no trade signals, nothing. It was as if they had simply disappeared. Daniel sent his report to Earth through secret channels. The message would take days to reach Admiral Kane, but this was too important to wait. Back on Earth, Rachel Martinez was working late in her lab. She studied alien life forms and had spent years learning about the different races in the galaxy. Her work helped humans understand their neighbors better. Now, with humans cut off from the galaxy, her job seemed pointless. Her computer beeped with a message. It was a data packet from one of their hidden listening posts. Rachel opened it and found scattered reports from the edge of the galaxy. Most were incomplete, but they painted a scary picture. The reports talked about something called Devourers. The name came from the few survivors who escaped from the outer edge systems. These creatures didn't just attack planets, they made them disappear completely. Ships, stations, even space itself seemed to vanish where they passed. Rachel worked through the night, putting together the pieces. The pattern was clear and terrifying. These devourers consumed everything in their path. They didn't want resources or territory like normal invaders. They wanted to erase everything from existence. She ran simulations on her computer. If the reports were true, these things moved fast enough to reach the main galaxy in weeks, not months. Every alien race that had kicked humanity out was in danger, and they had no idea what was coming. The irony made Rachel feel sick. The aliens who said humans were too dangerous now faced something truly dangerous, and they were completely unprepared for it. Meanwhile, Jake received new orders from Admiral Kane. Their hidden ships were to move closer to alien space and gather more information. It was risky. If the aliens found them, it would prove humans were still watching. But they needed to know more about this new threat. Jake's ship, the Defiant, moved carefully through empty space. They used old trade routes that nobody traveled anymore. Their engines ran quietly, and their sensors swept constantly for alien patrols. Getting caught would be bad for everyone. As they traveled, more reports came in. The Vorthon Collective, known for their strong shields and powerful weapons, had lost contact with their outer colonies. The mechanical synthesis sent scout ships to investigate, but none returned. Fear was starting to spread through alien space, though most races didn't understand what they were afraid of yet. Lisa brought Jake another report, this one more detailed than the others. Captain Daniel managed to record some communication from a Vorthon rescue ship. They saw it happen. Jake read the transcript. The Vorthon ship had arrived at one of their colonies to find empty space. Not destroyed buildings or dead planets. Nothing at all. The space where the system used to be was completely black and cold. Their instruments couldn't detect anything, not even the star that should have been there. The rescue ship tried to enter the area and investigate. As soon as they crossed into the dark zone, their ship started to fall apart. It's not from weapons or explosions, but as if the very idea of their ship was being erased. They barely escaped and fled back to Vorthon space with their terrifying story. Put down the report and looked out at the stars again. Somewhere out there, something was eating the galaxy piece by piece. The same aliens who had rejected humanity for being dangerous were now facing extinction. And they didn't even know it yet. Dr. Martinez contacted the ship with her analysis. Her voice came through clearly on the communication system. Captain, I've studied all the reports we've received. These devourers aren't like anything we've seen before. They don't just destroy matter, they destroy the space where matter exists. It's like they're unmaking reality itself. The bridge crew listened in silence. Even with all their training and experience, this was beyond anything they could imagine. How do you fight something that erases the battlefield? There's more, Dr. Martinez continued. Based on their speed and direction, they'll reach the main alien worlds within 2 weeks. The council chambers, the trade centers, the homeworlds of every race that voted against us. All of it will be gone. Jake made his decision. Lisa, prepare. A message for Admiral Kane. Tell him we need to act fast. And send a copy of all our data to the other hidden ships. Everyone needs to know what's coming. As the message went out through secret channels, Jake wondered what humanity would do. The aliens had turned their backs on humans, calling them too dangerous and unpredictable. Now those same aliens faced complete extinction, and only humanity knew about it. The choice seemed obvious to Jake. Humanity had been rejected and insulted, but that didn't matter now. People were going to die, billions of them across dozens of worlds. And if humanity had the power to help, then they had the responsibility to act. He looked at his crew, all good people who had served faithfully even when their own species was cast out. They deserved better than exile and isolation. But more importantly, the innocent families on alien worlds deserved to live. Even if their governments had made terrible choices, the galaxy had turned its back on humanity. Now humanity would have to decide whether to return the favor or be better than those who had rejected them. For Jake, the choice was already made. He just hoped the rest of humanity would agree. The news came through alien communication channels like a thunderstorm. The Vorthon Collective was gone. Their beautiful crystal homeworld, protected by shields that could stop entire fleets, had vanished in just 6 hours. No explosions, no battle reports, no final messages. One moment it was there, the next it was empty space. Susan Wells sat in the underground command center on Earth, watching the alien broadcasts with growing alarm. The intercepted transmissions painted a picture of complete panic. Who had been confident and proud just weeks ago, now spoke with fear in their voices. The Alterian Republic speaker Thylix held an emergency meeting of the Galactic Council. His normally calm voice cracked as he announced the loss of the Vorthon homeworld. For the first time in galactic history, an entire major civilization had been wiped out in less than a day. Susan had spent her career studying alien military tactics. She knew how strong the Vorthons were. Their defensive technology was the best in the galaxy. Something could destroy them so quickly and completely. Nothing else stood a chance. General Chris Bennett joined her at the monitoring station. He commanded Earth's defensive forces and had fought against some of these alien races in the past.
Oh.
He watched them fall to something far worse than humans had ever been. "Look at this," Susan said, pointing to her screen. The Zephyrian Empire is pulling back their entire fleet. Every ship, every station, they're abandoning the outer territories. Chris read the tactical reports. The same Zephyrians who had demanded human colonies were now running from their own space. Their energy weapons, powerful enough to crack moons, had been completely useless against the Devourers. Worse, their ships disappeared just like everything. Else that got too close to the dark zones. "They're scared," Chris said. "I've never seen the Zephyrians retreat from anything." More reports came in throughout the day. The aquatic hydrants offered their deep space vessels to help evacuate civilians. The mechanical synthesis shared their tactical analysis programs, trying to find patterns in the attacks. The energy beings from the Lumina Nebula even pledged their mysterious powers to the fight. None of it mattered. System after system fell to the advancing darkness. The Devourers moved faster than any known technology, and they consumed everything in their path. Not just planets and ships, but the very space around them turned black and empty. Dr. Amanda Foster, frantically in her laboratory on Earth. She was humanity's leading expert on space and time physics. For months, she had been studying the scattered reports from the galaxy's edge, trying to understand what the Devourers really were. Her breakthrough came at 3 a.m. Amanda had been running calculations for 18 hours straight when the pattern finally became clear. The Devourers weren't just destroying things, they were unmaking reality itself. They created expanding zones where nothing could exist. Not even empty space. "It's impossible," Amanda muttered to herself, checking her math again. "They're eating the fabric of the universe." She ran more tests, feeding data from the alien reports into her computers. Every calculation gave the same terrifying result. The Devourers consumed space, time, and even the tiny quantum particles that held reality together. They left behind areas of absolute nothing. Not darkness, not vacuum, but true nothingness that hurt to think about. Amanda's discovery explained why alien weapons didn't work. You can't shoot something that exists outside of normal reality. The Devourers moved through dimensions that most species didn't even know existed. Captain Robert Hayes commanded a small stealth ship called the Shadow. His mission was dangerous but necessary. Get close to alien communication networks and gather intelligence. For 3 months, his ship had hidden near major alien trade routes, invisible to their sensors. Robert's ship was positioned near the Council's main communication relay when Amanda's report reached Admiral Kane. The Admiral made a decision that would change everything. After months of silence, humanity would break their exile and contact the aliens directly. Robert transmitted the message on all Council frequencies. It was simple and direct. "We know what they are and how to fight them." The response was immediate and desperate. Council chambers that had voted unanimously to exile humanity now flooded the communication channels with messages. They begged humans to return. They offered full citizenship, new territories, formal apologies, and anything else they could think of. Speaker Thylix himself sent a personal message to Admiral Kane. His proud voice was gone, replaced by the desperate tone of someone facing extinction. "Please," he said. "Our people are dying. We were wrong about humanity. Help us." Similar messages came from every major alien race. The Zephyrian Emperor, who had demanded human colonies, now offered to give them entire star systems. The Hydrons promised full access to their advanced technology. Even the mysterious energy beings offered to share their deepest secrets. But Admiral Kane's response surprised everyone. The message went out on all frequencies, reaching every alien world at once. "We will come, but not for your offers or apologies. We will come because it is right." The aliens didn't understand. They offered wealth, power, and status, but humanity asked for nothing in return. After being rejected and insulted, humans were willing to risk everything to save people who had betrayed them. Some alien leaders thought it was a trick. They couldn't believe any species would help their enemies without expecting something back. Others saw it as proof that they had been wrong about humanity all along. While the politicians argued, the Devourers continued their advance. 3 more systems vanished in a single day, including the important Calarian trading hub.
Dart.
Zones were growing larger and moving faster, spreading like an infection through the galaxy. Dr. Foster's analysis reached Alien. Scientists through the communication networks. For the first time, they understood what they were really fighting. The terror in their responses was clear. They had no weapons that could affect beings that existed partially outside reality itself. General Bennett coordinated with human forces across Earth's colonies. Every available ship was being prepared. For deployment, the human fleet was smaller than most alien armadas. But they had something the aliens lacked: knowledge of what they were truly facing. The preparation was frantic but organized. Human engineers worked day and night to build new weapons based on Dr. Foster's theories. If the Devourers existed outside normal space, then humanity needed weapons that could reach them there. Meanwhile, Robert Hayes observed the chaos spreading. Through alien space, refugee ships fled the advancing dark zones, carrying survivors from destroyed worlds. Many of these ships had nowhere to go. The Devourers were moving too, fast for normal evacuation procedures. Some alien fleets tried to fight back. The proud Synthesis sent their most advanced warships to engage the Devourers directly. Robert watched through his sensors as the mechanical vessels opened fire with every weapon they had. The energy beams and projectiles simply vanished into the dark zones as if they had never existed. The Synthesis ships lasted 12 minutes before they too were consumed. Their final transmission was a stream of mathematical data, their last attempt to understand how they were being destroyed. As news of each defeat reached the alien homeworlds, panic turned to despair. Species that had existed for thousands of years faced complete extinction. Their greatest weapons, their most advanced technology, their combined knowledge, none of it could stop the advancing darkness. In the council chambers, desperate measures were proposed. Some suggested abandoning their worlds and fleeing to other galaxies. Others wanted to try negotiating with the Devourers. A few even proposed destroying themselves rather than being consumed. Through it all, one fact remained clear: only humanity had offered real help. The species that had been rejected for being too dangerous was now their only hope for survival. Admiral Kane's fleet began moving toward alien space. Hundreds of human ships left their hiding places and started the long journey to the galaxy's core. They carried experimental weapons, untested theories, and the determination to protect people who had turned against them. The aliens watched human ships appear on their sensors with mixed emotions. Fear, hope, shame, and gratitude all blended together. They had cast out humanity, and now humanity was coming to save them as the first human vessels crossed into alien space. Breaking 3 months of exile, the galaxy held its breath. Everyone knew that humanity's arrival would change everything. The question was whether it would be enough to stop the advancing darkness that threatened to consume them all. Admiral Sharon Davis stood in the main war room on Earth, looking at the biggest display screen she had ever seen. Red dots showed human ships gathering from colonies across space. 800 vessels of all sizes floated in formation, battleships, as large as cities, fast cruisers, and small fighters that could dart between enemy fire. It was humanity's entire military force. Every ship that could fly, every weapon that could fire, every pilot brave enough to face the unknown. Compared to the massive fleets that alien races used to field, it looked small. But these ships carried something no alien vessel possessed: weapons designed to fight the impossible. Dr. Kevin Murphy had barely slept in weeks. His team worked around the clock to build devices they called reality anchors. The theory was simple, but the construction was incredibly difficult. These machines would hold normal spacetime together, preventing the Devourers from unmaking reality in small areas. "We only have enough materials for 50 anchors," Kevin told the Admiral. "Each one is built from salvaged alien technology and human computer systems. We've never tested them in real combat." Sharon nodded grimly. 50 anchors to protect 800 ships against an enemy that had destroyed entire star systems. The odds were terrible. but it was better than nothing. Lieutenant Commander Maria Santos volunteered for the first test mission, her small ship. The Resilience would carry one of the prototype anchors into a dark zone where the Calarian system used to exist. If the anchor worked, they would know humanity had a chance. If it failed, Maria would disappear like everything else the Devourers touched. Maria's ship approached the edge of the dark zone slowly. Her instruments went crazy as reality began to break down around her. Stars flickered and went out like candles. In the wind, space itself twisted into shapes that hurt to look at. Her crew watched in horror as the universe tried to tear itself apart. Activating reality anchor, Maria announced over the communication system. Her finger pressed the control button, and suddenly everything stabilized. The twisted space returned to normal. The flickering stars became steady again. A small bubble of real physics surrounded her ship in the sea of nothingness. "It works," she reported back to the fleet. "The anchor is holding. I can see the edge of the dark zone now. It's like a wall of absolute black, but we can maintain normal space near it." The success gave everyone hope, but it didn't last long. Within minutes, the Devourers adapted their feeding process. The dark zone began expanding faster, trying to overwhelm the small area of stability Maria's anchor created. Her ship had to retreat quickly before being consumed. Captain Timothy Brooks commanded the battleship Guardian, one of humanity's largest warships. He led the first real battle against Devourer scouts near what used to be Vorthan space. His ship carried 5 reality anchors and enough firepower to level mountains. The battle was unlike anything in military history. The Devourers appeared as dark shapes that seemed to exist in several dimensions at once. Human weapons, designed to destroy solid targets, barely affected beings that were only partially real. But the reality anchors allowed human ships to move and fight in the twisted space around the enemies. "Target the bright spots," Timothy ordered his weapons officer. "Those seem to be where they touch our reality." The Guardian's guns fired continuously, sending streams of energy and metal projectiles at the shifting dark forms. Most shots missed or simply vanished, but a few hit the bright intersection points. When they did, pieces of the Devourers broke. Away like chunks of dark ice, the enemy fought back in ways that defied understanding. They didn't use weapons. Instead, they tried to unmake the space around human ships. But the reality anchors held, creating small islands of normal physics where humans could operate. After 3 hours of fighting, the Devourer scouts retreated deeper into their dark zone. It was humanity's first victory, but everyone knew it was just the beginning. The main Devourer force was still advancing toward the galaxy's center, consuming everything in its path. News of the human victory spread through alien space faster than any ship could travel. Refugee fleets that had been fleeing in panic suddenly changed course. They began moving toward the areas where human ships operated, seeking protection under humanity's reality anchors. Major Nicole Turner found herself commanding the strangest fleet in galactic history. Zephyrian war cruisers flew alongside Alterian peacekeepers. Hydran deep space vessels worked with synthesis logic ships. The same species that had been enemies for centuries now followed human orders without question. "This is incredible," Nicole told her communication officer. "The Zephyrian Emperor just offered his personal flagship to serve under my command. 3 months ago, these people wanted us exiled from the galaxy, the diversity that had once caused. Political problems became humanity's greatest strength. Each alien race brought different technologies and abilities to the fight. Zephyrian energy weapons could damage Devourers when fired through human reality fields. Alterian shields could protect human ships while they recharged their anchors. Hydran sensors could track enemies through dimensions that human instruments couldn't detect. Dr. Amanda Foster made another important discovery while studying Devourer remains held in a reality anchor field. The pieces didn't decay or disappear like normal matter. Instead, they seemed to exist in a constant state of trying to return to nothingness. "They're not really alive in the way we understand life," Amanda reported to the fleet command. "More like ... mistakes in reality. Places where the universe forgot how to exist properly." Her research revealed something even more disturbing. The Devourers weren't invaders from another galaxy. They were pieces of this galaxy's future, somehow traveling backward through time. The universe was destined to collapse into these void entities. Eventually, their current attack was just an echo of that inevitable end. Captain Gregory Stone piloted one of humanity's stealth ships deep into Devourer-controlled space. His vessel, the Phantom, could hide from most sensors and move without being detected. His mission was to map enemy movements and find weaknesses in their formations. What Gregory found in the heart of the dark zones changed everything. The Devourers weren't randomly destroying systems. They were carefully selecting targets, always choosing the most populated worlds first. They seemed to be trying to prevent something even worse from happening. "Command, you need to hear this," Gregory transmitted. "Back to the fleet. I've been monitoring their behavior patterns. The Devourers are targeting specific locations, places where my instruments detect temporal anomalies. It's like they're trying to prevent some kind of time disaster." The revelation sparked heated debates among the combined fleet commanders. Some alien leaders wanted to try communication with the Devourers. Others argued for total war. But Commander Patricia Young, working with synthesis computers to analyze probability patterns, delivered the harsh truth. "I've run every possible scenario," Patricia announced to the War Council. "The Devourers believe that destroying our reality will prevent a worse catastrophe in the future. To them, universal death is better than whatever they're trying to stop. There can be no compromise." Fleet Admiral Brian Murphy began planning the largest military operation in galactic history. Every surviving ship, every working weapon, every reality anchor humanity could produce would be used in one massive attack. They called it Operation Starforge. "We're going to force them into a fight on our terms," Brian explained to the assembled commanders. "We'll create a huge stability field around the galaxy's center. The Devourers will have to fully manifest in normal space to continue their advance. When they do, we'll be waiting with everything we have." The combined fleet began moving toward the galactic core, and ships that had been built to fight each other now flew in perfect formation. Zephyrian energy cannons supported human kinetic weapons. Alterian defensive screens protected Hydron carriers. The diversity that had divided them for so long became their greatest weapon against an enemy that existed in terrible uniformity. As they traveled toward the final battle, veterans from dozens of wars worked side by side. Species that had fought for thousands of years shared their knowledge and resources freely. The threat of complete extinction had accomplished what centuries of diplomacy could not. True, cooperation between all galactic races. The irony was not lost on anyone. Humanity, exiled for being too different and unpredictable, had become the glue holding the galaxy together. Their stubborn refusal to give up, once seen as a dangerous flaw, now offered the only hope for survival. In the depths of space, as the greatest armada in history moved toward its destiny, one truth became clear to everyone involved. Sometimes the people who don't fit in are exactly what the world needs when everything falls apart. The war room aboard the Liberty had become the strangest place in the galaxy. Human officers worked next to Zephyrian commanders whose blue skin gleamed under the artificial lights. Alterian diplomats shared tables with Hydron military leaders who needed special water tanks to breathe. Synthesis robots calculated battle plans alongside energy beings from the Lumina Nebula, who existed as floating balls of light. General Andrew Clark looked around the room and shook his head in amazement. 3 months ago, half these species had voted to kick humanity out of civilized space. Now they took orders from human commanders and shared their most secret technologies without hesitation. "General, we have a problem," announced Dr. Jennifer Liu as she entered the war room. Her research team had been studying captured Devourer fragments for days, trying to understand how they worked. What she discovered would change everything they thought they knew about their enemy. "The Devourers aren't alien invaders, Jennifer," said her voice shaking slightly. "They're us. Or rather, they're what this galaxy becomes in the future. These creatures are traveling backward through time from a period when the universe collapses into void." The room fell silent. Alien commanders who had been discussing battle plans stopped talking. Even the synthesis robots paused their constant calculating. Implications were staggering. Jennifer continued her explanation, her words careful and precise. The universe is destined to end in complete collapse. Every star, every planet, every living thing will be consumed by expanding nothingness.
Oh.
The Devourers are that future trying to prevent an even worse fate by destroying everything. Now, Captain Gregory Stone stepped forward to add his findings. His stealth missions deep into Devourer territory had revealed their true purpose. They're not evil, he said. They're trying to save us from something that terrifies them even more than death. In their timeline, reality doesn't just end. It becomes something horrible that spreads beyond this universe. The revelation sparked intense debate among the fleet commanders. Speaker Thylix of the Alterian Republic suggested trying to communicate with the Devourers. If they were once like us, perhaps we can reason with them, he said hopefully. Commander. Patricia Young shook her head firmly. I've analyzed every possible outcome with the synthesis computers. The Devourers have made their choice. They believe that killing everything now is better than letting the future catastrophe happen. To them, universal death is mercy. The weight of this knowledge settled over everyone in the room. They weren't just fighting for their lives anymore. They were fighting against their own future selves, who had decided that existence was too dangerous to continue. Admiral Brian. Murphy spread a holographic map of the galaxy across the central table. Red zones showed areas already consumed by the Devourers. Yellow zones marked regions under immediate threat. Only a small section around the galactic core remained green and safe. Operation Starforge is our only option, Brian announced. We'll position every reality anchor we have around the galaxy's center. The field will be so large and stable that the Devourers will have no choice but to fully manifest in normal space. Once they do, we can fight them with conventional weapons. Plan was incredibly risky. If it failed, every ship in the combined fleet would be destroyed. But if they did nothing, the Devourers would continue their advance until nothing existed except empty darkness. Preparation for the operation took 3 days. Human engineers worked with alien technicians to modify reality anchors for maximum power output. The devices would burn out quickly at such high levels, but they only needed to work long enough for one decisive battle. Captain. Justin Miller commanded a squadron of mixed ships from 6 different species. His pilots included former enemies, who now trusted each other with their lives. Zephyrian fighter pilots flew alongside human aces. Hydron deep space interceptors provided cover for Alterian bombers. This is the strangest thing I've ever seen, Justin told his squadron leaders during their final briefing. A year ago, some of these pilots were shooting at each other. Now they're willing to die for each other. Lieutenant Ashley Davis had perhaps the most unusual job in the fleet. Her small research vessel, the Paradox, carried experimental equipment designed to broadcast mathematical impossibilities directly into the Devourer's quantum structure. The theory was that beings made of unmade reality couldn't process concepts. That violated logic itself. I'll be honest, Ashley admitted to her crew. We have no idea if this will work. The equations we're planning to broadcast shouldn't be able to exist. If we're right, they'll confuse the Devourers long enough for the main fleet to attack. If we're wrong, we'll probably cease to exist in several dimensions at once. Her crew, volunteers from 3 different species, nodded grimly. They understood the risks, but were willing to try anything to save their homes. The combined fleet moved into position around the galactic core. The sight was magnificent and terrifying. Thousands of ships from dozens of worlds formed perfect battle formations. Reality anchors the size of space stations created overlapping fields of stable spacetime, the center of it all. The galaxy's massive black hole provided a gravitational anchor point for their defensive line, Dr. Amanda. Foster monitored the reality anchor network from her position aboard the command ship. The devices were performing beyond expectations, creating a stable zone hundreds of millions of kilometers across. But she could see warning signs in the data. The anchors were burning through their power supplies much faster than predicted. Admiral, we have 6 hours at most before the entire system fails, Amanda reported. The anchors are using too much energy to maintain this large A field. Brian Murphy, nodded grimly. 6 hours to win or lose everything. He opened communication channels to every ship in the fleet. All units. This is Admiral Murphy. The enemy will arrive soon. Remember why we're here? Not for glory or territory, but to protect life itself. Every species, every world, every family deserves a chance to see tomorrow. The Devourers arrived like a wave of absolute darkness. They poured out of the void between dimensions, their forms shifting and changing, as they tried to unmake the reality anchor's field. For the first time since the war began, they were forced to take physical shape in normal space. They appeared as writhing masses of dark energy, constantly shifting between dimensions but unable to escape into nothingness. Some were as large as battleships, others as small as fighters. All of them moved with predatory purpose toward the fleet's defensive positions. Captain Derek Powell commanded one of the forward battle groups. His mixed squadron engaged the first Devourer wave. Weapons firing continuously into the dark forms, focus fire on the bright spots, he ordered his pilots. Those are the only parts that exist enough to be hurt. The battle was unlike anything in galactic history. Ships vanished into temporary void pockets, only to reappear moments later in different locations. Weapons fire curved through, twisted, space, sometimes hitting friendly vessels or simply ceasing to exist. The reality anchors held, but their fields flickered and sparked under the constant assault. Lieutenant Ashley Davis activated her experimental equipment at the height of this battle. The Paradox began broadcasting impossible mathematical equations directly into the quantum foam around the Devourers. The effect was immediate and startling. The dark entities suddenly stopped moving, their forms wavering like mirages in the desert. "It's working," Ashley reported excitedly. "They can't process Paradox. Their entire existence is based on unmaking reality. But they can't unmake something that shouldn't exist in the first place." The fleet pressed their advantage. With the Devourers confused and partially paralyzed, conventional weapons began to have effect. Spherian energy beams tore through dark forms that had been nearly invulnerable moments before. Human kinetic weapons shattered void creatures into fragments that dissolved back into quantum foam. But the victory came at a terrible cost. Reality anchor stations exploded under the strain, their crews vanishing into temporary holes in space-time. Entire squadrons were lost when void pockets opened inside their formations. The galaxy's greatest heroes died fighting an enemy that shouldn't exist, protecting people who had once rejected them. As the battle raged around the galactic core, one thing became clear to everyone involved. Win or lose, this would be the end of one chapter in galactic history and the beginning of another. The species that survived would never forget the day when humanity chose to protect those who had turned against them. The final battle raged in the dying light of the galaxy's massive black hole. Reality anchors the size of space stations created a huge bubble of normal physics around the galactic core, forcing the Devourers to take solid form for the first time. They appeared as writhing masses of dark energy that hurt to look at directly, constantly shifting between dimensions but finally able to be hurt by normal weapons. Admiral Tony Rodriguez commanded the central battle group from his flagship, the Eternal. Around him, the largest fleet in galactic history fought an enemy that challenged everything they understood about existence. Ships disappeared into void pockets only to reappear minutes later in impossible locations. Weapon fire curved through twisted space, sometimes hitting friendly vessels or simply vanishing into nothing. The battle was chaos beyond imagination. Zephyrian cruisers fired their energy weapons through gaps in reality, while human battleships provided covering fire with kinetic weapons. Alterian shields protected damaged vessels as they retreated for repairs. Hydron fighters darted between the dark forms, their pilots using instincts developed in the deepest parts of their ocean worlds. Dr. Catherine Barnes worked frantically in the Eternal Science Laboratory. Her instruments showed the terrible truth. The reality anchors were burning out much faster than anyone had predicted. The massive energy required to maintain such a large, stable field was consuming exotic matter at an incredible rate. We have maybe 6 hours before the entire system collapses, Catherine reported over the communication system. The anchors can't handle this level of output much longer. Tony felt the weight of command pressing down on him. 6 hours to save the galaxy, or watch everything they had ever known disappear into absolute nothingness. He opened channels to every ship in the fleet, his voice carrying across dozens of languages and communication methods. All units, this is Admiral Rodriguez. We have one chance to end this. Every ship, every weapon, everything we have left goes into this final push. Fight not just for your own people, but for every child who deserves to see tomorrow. Captain Justin Miller led his suicide squadron toward the heart of the Devourer formation. His ships carried prototype quantum torpedoes designed to destabilize the entity's connection to other dimensions. The weapons were untested and incredibly dangerous. They might destroy the targets, or they might tear holes in reality itself. Remember, we only get one shot at this, Justin told his pilots. Close, fire everything, and get out fast. If these torpedoes work the way Dr. Barnes thinks they will, we don't want to be nearby when they go off. His squadron dove into the thickest part of the enemy formation. Dark tentacles of void stuff reached out to grab their ships, but the reality, anchor fields held just long enough for them to reach firing range. 24 quantum torpedoes launched simultaneously into the center of the largest Devourer cluster. The explosion that followed wasn't visible light or heat. Instead, reality itself seemed to scream as the torpedoes tore apart the quantum structure, holding the Devourers together. Half of Justin's pilots never made it out of the blast zone, but their sacrifice weakened the enemy formation enough for the main fleet to press forward. Lieutenant Ashley Davis continued broadcasting her impossible mathematical equations from the research ship Paradox. The effect on the Devourers was dramatic. They couldn't process concepts that violated logic itself. Beings designed to unmake reality found themselves unable to unmake things that shouldn't exist in the first place. The Paradox broadcasts are working, Ashley reported excitedly. The Devourers are getting confused every time they try to process the impossible equations. It's like their entire system crashes when they encounter something that breaks the rules of existence. But maintaining the broadcasts was taking its toll. The Paradox's computers were overheating from the strain of generating mathematical impossibilities. Sparks flew from control panels as the ship's systems tried to handle concepts that hurt to think about. The turning point came when the largest Devourer, a creature the size of a small moon, moved directly toward the reality anchor network. Its approach destabilized the entire defensive field, causing gaps to appear in the bubble of normal space. Other Devourers immediately began moving toward these weak points. Trying to escape back into the safety of unmade reality, Admiral Laura Johnson made the hardest decision of her career. Every remaining reality anchor would be overloaded simultaneously, creating a massive pulse of stabilized space-time. The wave would destroy most of the anchors and leave the fleet defenseless. But it might also tear apart every Devourer caught in normal space. All anchor stations prepare for emergency overload, Laura announced. This will destroy most of our defensive systems, but it's our only chance to end this fight. The overload began slowly, then built to incredible intensity. Reality anchors that had been burning brightly suddenly blazed like new stars. The stable field around the galactic core expanded rapidly, pushing against the Devourers and forcing them to become even more solid and vulnerable. Captain Derek Powell watched from his battle-damaged cruiser as the wave of stabilized spacetime swept outward from the galaxy's center. The Devourers, caught between dimensions by Ashley's Paradox broadcasts and unable to escape the expanding field of normal physics, began to tear apart like shadows in bright sunlight. "They're breaking up," Derek reported to the fleet. "The combination of the stability wave and the Paradox broadcasts is ripping them apart at the quantum level." The largest Devourers fought back desperately, trying to unmake the space around them faster than the reality anchors could stabilize it. But their efforts only made things worse. Every attempt to create void zones was immediately filled by the expanding wave of normal physics. One by one, the dark entities dissolved back into quantum foam. Their forms, no longer able to maintain coherence in stable spacetime, simply came apart and scattered into harmless energy. The zones of absolute nothingness they had created began to fill with normal space again, like water flowing back into empty containers. The battle lasted 18 hours. When it finally ended, 70% of the combined fleet was gone. Entire species had sacrificed their last ships to protect civilizations they had never met. The space around the galactic core was filled with debris from hundreds of destroyed vessels and the scattered remains of reality anchor stations. But they had. 1. The Devourers were gone, dissolved back into the quantum level where they could no longer threaten normal reality. The dark zones throughout the galaxy slowly filled with normal space as the universe healed itself from the wounds the void creatures had inflicted. In the aftermath, survivors counted their losses and began the long journey home. The mood was both sorrowful and triumphant. They had lost friends, comrades, and heroes. But they had saved everything that mattered, the right of life to exist and continue. Captain Derek Powell received a transmission from the rebuilt council chambers. On the Alterian homeworld, Speaker Thylix, whose people had been among the first to vote for humanity's exile, spoke words that would be remembered for generations. When the galaxy turned its back, humanity chose to protect them. We will never forget this debt, and we will never again question the value of those who stand apart from the crowd. The formal ceremonies came later. Earth's colonies were not just restored, but expanded. Humans took their place in the galactic community not as outcasts or conquerors, but as protectors and guardians. New laws were passed ensuring that no species would ever again be exiled for being different. But the real change was deeper than politics or territory. The galaxy had learned that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from fitting in, but from having the courage to be different when difference is needed most. Years later, human ships continued their patrol routes through the dark spaces between stars. They watched for threats that others might miss, guardians chosen not by appointment, but by their willingness to stand up. When standing up mattered most, the species that had once feared humanity's aggressive nature now understood the truth. Humans weren't dangerous because they wanted to hurt others. They were dangerous to anything that threatened the innocent and helpless. In a galaxy full of predators and void creatures, that kind of danger was exactly what civilization needed. Children of every species grew up hearing the story of how humanity saved the galaxy. They learned that being different wasn't something to be ashamed of, but something to be proud of when that difference could help others. And in the vast darkness between stars, where new threats might someday emerge, human ships kept watch, ready to stand between civilization and chaos, ready to protect those who couldn't protect themselves, ready to prove once again that sometimes the best guardians are those who never wanted to be guardians at all.